Hi everybody, Andrew here. I am currently on my break at Starbucks, and so I figure that now would be an appropriate time for me to start my series of videos on basic coffee and espresso knowledge. This seems a little random, but it was inspired by Josh Braun, who spoke to one of my classes a few days ago, and he really wanted us to get out of our comfort zone, and I figured that this was a good way for me to try to do that. I've never recorded myself before, so pardon if I'm a bit awkward, but today I figured a good starting place would be talking about the 4 tasting characteristics of any coffee. And so that can be broken down into these right here. We have aroma, acidity, body, and flavor. And next to them I put some keywords that will help you remember the main attribute of each characteristic. We have smell for aroma, of course, acidity, sensation, body, weight, and flavor is of course taste. So our first characteristic, aroma, of course, is the smell of our coffee. And this is our first impression of the coffee. You know, it's the first sense that we get of our coffee is the smell. Now, it's pretty self-explanatory, there's not much to say about it. Different coffees do have subtly different smells, but for the most part, you know, you'll walk into a coffee shop and you'll just be greeted by that wonderful smell of coffee. Now, moving on to the second tasting characteristic, which is a bit confusing, acidity. It does not describe the pH of your coffee. That is a big misconception. It actually describes, like I said, the sensation that the coffee has on your tongue. So if you see me looking down at any point, it's because I have some notes here so I make sure I don't forget anything. But acidity, rather than describing the pH of your coffee, describes what we call the brightness of your coffee. So this can be described in terms of either low, medium, and high. And essentially a high acidity coffee, a highly acidic coffee, is one that has a pretty tangy and crisp flavor. It leaves a strong sensation on your tongue when you taste a highly acidic coffee. On the opposite end of the spectrum, we have low acidity coffee, which has a more smooth finish. Moving on to the next characteristic, which is body. This is the weight of your coffee. Literally the weight of your coffee. This is how it feels on your tongue, and this can also be similarly, broken up into 3 different subcategories, you could say: light, medium, and full. So a full-bodied coffee, as the name sort of implies, feels pretty heavy on your tongue, and the flavor, therefore, is pretty long-lasting. Whereas a lightly bodied coffee has a bit of a more subtle flavor and a smoother finish to it. A smoother, cleaner finish. And finally, we move on to our last tasting characteristic, which is flavor. And of course, this is the taste of your coffee. Now, this is really where coffees start to distinguish themselves, is their flavor. Some coffees are more subtle, others have more of a bold, pronounced flavor, and these really are very dependent on the region where the coffee is grown. So I have some regions where coffee is most commonly grown here. For coffee that's grown in Africa, it typically has a more florally, citrus, and a bit of a spicy flavor to it. For the Asia and the Pacific region, they are typically more herbal and earthy. And for Latin America, they are typically more nutty, have a bit of a more cocoa flavor to them, and have a bit of a softer spice. So that's it. Those are all the basics of coffee tasting. Again, I'm gonna show the list and their the words with their key associations so that we can remember them, or at least try to. And yeah, that is all for today. I hope this video wasn't too awkward. Again, this is my first time recording myself, so definitely, you know, going into some foreign territory here. But again, I'd like to thank Josh Braun for encouraging me to step out of my comfort zone and try something new. So I hope you guys learned something, and I hope you have a great day. Thank you.